Right before I went to my friend's 10th birthday party, the phone rings. My parents used to never have a problem with me picking up the phone when they were busy. So they were busy, and I picked up. Me. Hello? Man. Hey sweetie, are your parents there? Me. Yeah, but they're busy. Man. How old are you? By this point he was breathing rather hard. Me. I'm 9. Man. Well, would it be okay for me to push my penis in your vagina? Wasn't sure what I heard, but I still got a chill down my spine. Me. What? Man, more confidently. Can I put my penis into your vagina? Major chills at this point, so I slammed the phone and am absolutely mortified. My dad is the only one home, and I felt too embarrassed to tell him, even though I was equally scared. Spent the whole time at the skating rink, where the birthday was, scared and thinking the guy who called was going to kidnap me. When I get home, I tell my mom what happened because she could tell I was not feeling okay. She immediately called the cops, and they came over to see what they could do. After some brief sleuthing, it turns out the guy was calling different kids around the area all the way from Pennsylvania, Washington born here, and saying vulgar things to them as well. And honestly, that's the last I heard of him. And of course, as with the theme of this subreddit, let's not ever meet. Let's begin. My best friend Liz and I went to Six Flags in Atlanta for her birthday, along with her sister Marie and their mom Lena. We had a great time, but didn't exactly want to spend all of our money on the expensive food the park had. So at around midnight, we leave the park and look for the nearest McDonald's. You would think a McDonald's in this day and age would be an easy find, but we drove about 30 minutes before we saw a sign for one. McDonald's, 1 mile to the right. We drive to the McDonald's and order. We could already tell we weren't in the best part of town. The McDonald's was not up to date, nor was there anyone there or in the surrounding parking lots. Either way, we were hungry and didn't care. Once we got our food, we pulled up to a spot to distribute the food between us. I will point out here that Lena's window was down, so Lena, Marie, and Liz are arguing about who got what food, and I'm looking out the window. To our left, I see a tweaked out woman and man talking to each other, hurriedly and pointing at our car. My alarms were going off, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of something that could be unimportant. Well, the man takes off and the woman starts coming straight towards our car. I immediately yell to Lena, "She's coming!" And Liz looks up, goes, "Mom, we have to go." Lena's oblivious until Marie also chimes in about it. This woman is about 10 feet from our car. Lena goes, "Oh shit," and starts going in reverse. The woman yells, "I just need some help." And Lena says, "Sorry, I can't help you." We speed out, and I look over. The man and the woman are running across the 4-lane road into the woods. Sure, she totally just wanted some help. We were sure that we were about to get mugged and robbed, but thankfully we didn't. Creepy tweaker and her boyfriend. Let's not meet. Ever again. My freshman year of college, I lived in the oldest, grossest dorm rooms on campus. We were settled right in front of train tracks, and right next to a busy city street. Being 18 and careless, I was never really worried about the area. I figured we were safe enough with our locked gates and entryways. As many older dorms have, our floor had to share one huge bathroom. We had small, dimly lit square shower stalls, covered by a thin plastic curtain. There were 8 shower stalls in total, 4 on each wall facing each other. One late morning, I was taking my shower when I heard rustling coming from a stall across from mine. I wasn't really friends with anyone in the dorm yet, so I didn't say anything. It got really quiet for a few minutes, then the rustling started again. But nobody had started the shower. I started to rush through my shower thinking there were mice or roaches in the bathroom making those noises. As I'm rinsing my hair, I get a peek through the crack between the shower curtain and the tiled wall. and I see what's been rustling around in the shower caddy corner to mine. I screamed loud enough to be heard throughout the entire floor. There had been a homeless man jerking off on the floor of the shower stall, peeking at me, through the edges of the curtain. He ran out of the bathroom and dorm before anyone there could get a hold of him. Police were called, and he was detained, and I never heard much more from them besides they caught him near the train tracks. Needless to say, I didn't live in the ghetto dorm for the entire school year. Second semester, I was out of there, and the following year, the entire building was torn down. Homeless paper. Although you looked like you were already on the brink of death, let's not meet again. When I was 16 years old, my dad started telling me about the middle of the night phone calls. The caller would get my dad on the line, ask for me, and when he didn't get me, he would start telling my dad the rudest, most vile things about me. I didn't know who was calling, or why, and I never woke up when the phone rang. I wish I could sleep like that now. So I never spoke with the guy. Fast forward, and I'm 22, fresh out of the military, and landed at home for a year while I start college. Get a job and save money. This time I hear the phone ring in the middle of the night. Dad mentioned the phone calls tapered off while I was away, for years, but have started again. One day I am at home and I get a phone call around 12 noon. Some guy, I don't recognize his voice, asks for me, and I say, "Speaking." He proceeds to ask me if I remember doing all sorts of sexual acts, and describes some stuff before I hang up. I am rattled because I always thought if I could hear his voice, I would know who it was. I called the police, who came out to take my statement. This was just a year or so before caller ID became available in my city. They told me how to get the call traced next time, gave me a case number. I moved into my own apartment about a year later, got my name listed in the phone book. Before the internet, this was a big deal. One day, a few months after I moved in, I have a message on my answering machine. "Hello, I think you know who this is." Still. Click. I promptly asked for an unlisted number, and I was one of the first people to get residential caller ID in the city of Seattle. But as far as I know, he never called again. When I was in my early, mid-teens, I would often hang out with my friend Abby at the park. This park had a fairly large forest area with hiking trails. There was a basketball court right at the edge of the forest. One day my friend and I made the poor decision to make crazy noises at the people playing basketball, who were men in their 20s. We expected that they would be confused. We did not expect that they would chase after us with a baseball bat. Abby and I ran off in different directions through the woods as fast as we could. Now, take a moment. Imagine this is a horror movie and the girl is running through the woods being pursued. What do you think would happen next? If you guessed she tripped over a tree root and fell flat on her face, you would be correct. The fact that I just had a real-life horror movie moment was not lost on me. I got up and ran. I didn't even look behind me until I reached a trail with regular people on it. I followed the trail until I met up with Abby. We had both either lost our pursuers, or our pursuers gave up. I don't know what would have happened if they had caught up to us. And I don't want to. 20-something guys who chase after 14-year-old girls with a baseball bat are not people I want to meet again. While we probably shouldn't have made silly noises at them from behind trees, they certainly shouldn't have chased us with a baseball bat. Note, I don't know how many of them had baseball bats. I definitely saw one being picked up, but wasn't looking closely enough to see if any others were there. This did not happen directly to me, though I was in the home when it happened. The witness to all of this is my older sister, Tori. Around 1999, my sister and her friend Chrissy were 16, and Chrissy had just gotten her license. They had been out joyriding in Chrissy's DeVille. We lived in a newer development in a pretty rural area, so there wasn't much else to do for fun. When they got back to our neighborhood, it was already dark. Chrissy lived about half a block away, and so she was going to drop Tori off before heading home. The house we lived in had a large patio extended from the front of the house, with trees along either side blocking the view of the driveway. Chrissy stopped the car in front of the driveway, and Tori was about to get out of the car when Chrissy grabbed her arm. Tori looked back and saw a look of fear on Chrissy's face. She turned back toward the house to see what caused this reaction and saw a figure crouched in the shadows between the parked cars. Looking back at them was a man in all black. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt, black pants, and, most frighteningly, a black ski mask. He was also completely barefoot. As he made eye contact with the girls, he raised his finger to his lips, as a gesture to shush. Tori slammed the door shut and they raced to Chrissy's house, where her father called the police. And my father. No trace of the man was ever found. What really frightens me about this occurrence is that my parents, myself, and my younger sister were all home at the time. I don't know if the man had any weapons, or if he would have moved along when he realized the house was occupied. But I'm glad my sister came home when she did. And creepy barefoot shushing man, let's not meet. This is a story my dad told me not too long ago about my grandpa, and how he came extremely close to be murdered. My grandpa used to be a pastor at a local church, and one night, when he was driving home from a service and was still wearing his robes and collar, he saw a hitchhiker at the side of the road and decided to pull over and pick him up, like he usually would when he saw a hitchhiker. He pulled over and the man got in. The man was wearing overalls and was also carrying an old metal lunchbox with him. My grandpa assumed that he was a construction worker who did not have a ride home after a shift. My grandpa and him started to converse and eventually arrived at the man's destination. The man got out and thanked my grandpa for the ride. A few days later, my grandpa was talking to his neighbor. At one point in the conversation, she brought up a story she had seen on the news about a man who would get rides from people by hitchhiking. Then, when he would reach his destination, he would take a knife out of an old metal lunchbox and kill the person driving. My grandpa almost fainted after hearing this news. He assumed the only reason he was alive and talking to her was because of the robes and collar he was wearing. Now, it was late 1999 when I was 15. I lived about 3 miles from my school, so my mum would pick me up every day. But this time she was running a little bit late, so I went to go and get a drink while I waited. So anyone who lives in Queensland knows how hot summers get when you're just standing around. So I went into the nearest KFC toilets, that was a 60-second walk from my school, so I could take my itchy tights off, and I went to the gas station next door to get a drink. As I walked in, a guy who was walking through the car park walked in the gas station right behind me, and kept following me down every aisle. From what I remember, he was pretty old, and all of his clothes were dirty, so I'm guessing he was either very poor or homeless. I avoided making eye contact. I walked around all of the aisles trying to get rid of him, but I knew he was still walking behind me. So I thought, fuck the drink. I'll go back to the KFC where it was a bit more crowded, so people can do something if anything bad happens. I walked over quickly and got in the back of the queue for food. To my horror, I see him coming through the door. I thought this can't have been a coincidence, and I was right. He comes right behind me and starts talking to me. I ignored him whenever he'd asked me how old I was and where I was from. But then he put his hand around my arm from behind me. So I shouted, "What the fuck you touching me for?" and walked towards the counter. This grabbed a lot of people's attention. A lot of people were looking at me, but honestly, I didn't care. Luckily, a manager was on duty, so I called him over, and he came out and asked what the commotion was. After I told him that he was following me and really bothering me, the manager asked him to leave the establishment, or the cops would be called. and after stuttering and trying to come up with something to say, he just left the restaurant in a rage. All I could think was that it happened to me. I thought that was just something you heard on the news and that it was some sort of rare occurrence, but nope. It can happen to anyone. Random pervert, pedo, potential kidnapper. Let's not meet. 1990s manager of KFC. Let's meet again so I can thank you. I didn't get the chance last time. So a couple of weeks ago, I was cuddling in my room with my boyfriend. We were just chilling, watching some videos on YouTube and such. This isn't out of the ordinary, considering that we do this all the time. However, this particular night, I decided to have my window open. I normally never open my window or leave the blinds wide open in fear of seeing the face of somebody in my backyard, partially due to reading a lot of Let's Not Meet. But I decided that it was time to get over my fear, and that there was no way that there was anyone in my backyard or behind my window. So we were just chilling when all of a sudden my mom comes inside my room and immediately she's like, "You need to close your windows and blinds right now." And she looks hella panicked, and she's hushing her voice like someone would hear her. So I was like, "What do you mean? Is there someone out there?" And she gives me this look that literally brings chills down my spine. And I start to freak out, so my boyfriend goes to close my windows and blinds. I asked my mom what was going on, and this is what my mom told me. I was letting in her friend to pee, and I opened the door from our garage that leads to the side gate to find some guy crouched behind our trash cans, and he just stood up and walked out of our side gate the moment I opened the door. Now let me tell you why this freaks me out. My side gate is connected to my backyard. There's nothing that separates the two. And my window opens directly towards my backyard. So there was this guy crouched behind our trash cans near my window. The entire time my boyfriend and I had the windows open. He literally could have came in at any moment, or could have been watching us for who knows how long. And we don't even know who it was, or why they were there, or how often they come over. So man hiding behind my trash cans. Let's not meet. I was 12 years old when my class went on project days. I was very excited about the next few days, but after spending one day there, I got ill. When my classmates left the hotel, I had to stay. After some boring hours, I decided to go out of my room and look around in the hotel. When I was in the lobby, I noticed that nobody was there. Then suddenly some guy came into the lobby. He glanced at me and began to talk to me. He asked me what I was doing there, and I told him that my classmates were gone, and I did not feel well, so I stayed. He looked at me for a few seconds. He seemed very nice, but then he asked me a question that I did not expect. He asked me if I was completely alone, and if I would show him where my room is. I was about to panic, but luckily I stayed calm, and said to him that in fact I wasn't alone in my room, and that my class would return in a few minutes. Then suddenly some other guy came into the lobby, and the creepy guy I was talking to went out of the lobby without saying anything. After that moment I went back into my room and waited until my class returned. To be fair, I have to say that I am not completely sure if that guy really wanted to harm me, but I will not forget the face he made when I said that I'm alone. I was living with my boyfriend a few years back. We were living in a suburban area that was slightly sketchy, but never anything as a woman I was too afraid to venture out alone in. Anyways, one night we were both in the apartment watching TV in the living room, when a loud banging pounded on the door, over and over and over. We were scared shitless, just staring at each other because this was not knocking. It was banging, pounding. We had no peephole in our door, so we sat there frozen waiting for the aggressive pounding and handle rattling to end. After a while it stopped, About 30 seconds later, the sliding glass door in the kitchen began to rattle, as though someone was trying to pull it open. Luckily, it had the screen door locked, the glass door itself locked, and a wooden thick stick in the track to prevent it from being opened from the outside. We were so scared, but did not make a move. Finally, the banging and jiggling on the kitchen door stopped. We were relieved. We brushed it off and began watching TV again. About a minute and a half later, the pounding on the front door began again, with intense jiggles on the handle. We waited it out in complete fear until we heard pounding on a door in the distance, our neighbour's door. We were so frightened we went to bed, deciding we would start looking for another place. The next day I went to the kitchen, and the screen door was open completely. I know I shut it the previous night, because of mosquitoes. We moved soon after another similar thing happened, while I was in the home alone later. Never figured out who or what that was. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and I live in a rural area. My house is almost entirely visible from the road. I'm typing this almost exactly 30 minutes after it happened, and I'm still shaking. At 5 a.m., 30 minutes ago, I was sleeping deeply and someone slowly opened my bedroom window. My bed is literally right next to the window, so I can open and close it. I was sleeping, and I could hear my window slowly opening upwards. It's old and heavy, and I thought I was dreaming. Or it was a possum because they live on the tree outside it. It's 5 a.m. and it's getting light at about this time. My bedroom is isolated and at the back of the house, but there is a complete driveway and full access to it there. And holy shit, I realize it's a person opening the window. I look through my makeshift curtain and I say, "What the fuck?" And there's a figure outside my window and they slam it down quickly when they realize there's a person less than a meter from them, right next to my face. I could see the figure because there was still some light, but nothing else. I start yelling. I go to my parents, etc. They check the area, but they can't see any cars or people, as it's covered in trees. They're stressed. All in the meanwhile, I think I'm crazy. How could that have happened? Was I dreaming? But my curtain is tucked under the window, and my cat is going crazy, and I know it happened. It was terrifying. I'm sure that they were a thief. We've had some dodgy people around my area before, but I swear, when it happened, I thought it was a ghost or something. I was terrified because I've been reading a lot of this sub and no sleep. And now I have to get ready for school. My parents are going to put a lock on my window. Edit. I don't understand why someone would try to rob a house at 5 a.m. My dad's awake every morning before 5. And there's still light in the sky. If it was earlier in the night, it probably would have been way scarier. Edit 2. A policewoman came. She explained about crimes in the area. She looked for footprints and fingerprints, but couldn't really see any. And it was raining. She was really kind, but I'm still spooked. Edit 3. I don't know if anyone will read this, but a few hours later my parents discovered the window adjacent to mine had chisel marks on it, and was fairly damaged. Obviously this means they tried to break in through there, but couldn't, and then tried my window. My husband works nights sometimes. His shifts rotate, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 p.m. to 9 a.m., that sort of thing. I wasn't too bothered by it until the other night. We live in a fourplex, one beside and two behind, all on a single level. Since I'm not working yet, I'm pretty familiar with the comings and goings of my neighbours. Heck, I even know what everyone's cars sound like. It was probably just after midnight, and I was talking to some friends over Skype, when I heard the door handle jiggle. At first, I thought maybe my husband had come home early, and got up to greet him. Then quickly realized I hadn't heard his work boots on the gravel or his car. I went really still, and kept listening, just in case I was mistaken. Finally I yelled, "Hello?" Just silence. Then I heard something in the back. My husband likes me to be protected, so he bought us a couple of guns. I grabbed the shotgun and pumped it once. It's loud enough without actually putting ammo in it that you know what it is. Then I yelled, "I have a gun, and I know how to use it. Get lost before I call the police." Big, heavy footsteps ran off across our gravelled lot, and I stayed up the remainder of the night until the sun came up. Then I finally fell asleep. My husband came home later that morning and was worried when he found me in bed at 11 a.m, but let me sleep a little longer once I explained what happened. The next day, he had off, so we went to visit some friends of his. When we got back, we discovered the pumpkins I had next to the stoop were all knocked over, like someone was looking for a key. Husband did a quick sweep of the house before we went in, but we're looking for a new place now. So, person trying to break into our place, let's not meet. So I just got back from the store, and I gotta share this experience I just had with you guys. It may not be as scary as some of the other encounters posted on this subreddit, but it still gives me the chills. Let me start off by saying that this morning I wasn't in the best of moods. I had to work the graveyard shift last night, and I woke up after only 4 hours of sleep, with my back killing me. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I decided that I would go run a few errands since I was now wide awake. I needed to get a new haircut while I was out as well. My sister works at a salon that is right next to a Target, so after I got my sister to mow my scalp, for free by the way, I popped over to Target, intending to grab a few things before heading home. So, I was pushing my cart down the frozen food section, and I turned a corner to go into the next aisle. When I did, there was a middle-aged lady that was pushing her cart, heading in the opposite direction. I nearly bumped into her, but stopped before our carts collided. She gave me a mean look, and said in a really bitchy tone, "Excuse me." Now, again, I have to say I wasn't in the best of moods, and I'm a short-tempered person as it is. So without thinking, I shot back at her and said, "Shut up, you're fine. Call me an asshole if you want. No one's perfect." But what happened next was just pure insanity. The lady then suddenly left her shopping cart and started to follow me. I noticed this was about halfway down the aisle, and I turned around to ask her what her problem was, and then, I shit you not, she rolled her eyes back into her head, pointed at me and screamed very loudly. When I say screamed, I mean she was shrieking at the top of her lungs. It was like something out of The Exorcist. I hurried down the aisle to get away from this insane person, but she started running after me, still pointing at me. Needless to say, all the bystanders immediately stopped what they were doing and stared at us. The lady kept screaming like a banshee at the top of her lungs while she chased me around the store. Well, I noped the fuck out of there. Didn't feel like explaining the situation to an employee, and I couldn't stand hearing that ear-piercing screaming any second longer. I ran out of the exit of the store. I looked back into the store as I headed for my car. The lady was standing just outside the now open automated sliding doors, but she was still inside the store, if that makes sense. While she stood there, her mouth was just hanging wide open, and she was still pointing at me, and her eyes were still rolled back into her head. All you could see was the whites of her eyes. She suddenly turned around and briskly walked back into the store. I decided to pick up my stuff at Walmart just down the street instead. All I could think the entire drive home was, what the fuck was that? Creepy, screaming, possessed banshee lady. Perhaps I shouldn't have been so rude to you, but you still have more than one screw loose in your noggin. Let's not meet again. So here's a bit of backstory first. I live in a neighbourhood with lots of abandoned houses. There are about 12 houses in my neighbourhood, and over 7 of them are abandoned. In one of the abandoned houses there is a playground, in the backyard that the old neighbours left behind. Now I was 12 at the time, and I knew in my brain I was a little too old to be playing on a playground made for 6-year-olds. But I can't resist a nice swing set. I would spend some of my extra time over there, as it was summer, and I usually just played video games. The house is past some woods you have to walk through, about a block away from my house. It was a normal day and my mother said I should get some fresh air outside, and that she was tired of watching me play video games. I thought it was the perfect opportunity to go swing on the swing set. It was beautiful outside. The not too hot heat, but the warm with a slight wind. I got on my shoes and walked down the street. As I was about maybe a few steps in, I heard a branch snap. Now I hear these all the time from squirrels, so I don't think anything of it. I finally finished walking through the forest and reached the house. I open the back fence, lock it, and start to swing. I swing for maybe about 2 minutes when I hear breathing. Now I stop for a moment, trying to think where the hell it's coming from. After about 30 seconds of stopping, I forced myself to think it was just me, as I was going pretty high. I continued to swing for another 5 minutes, and decide that I was done for now. As soon as I sit up, I hear a, "Hey." I look around for a moment and notice a man, about mid-30s, early 40s. Dirty, gross black hair that's all over the place, a stained-up sweatshirt, and underwear with the back cut out so I can see the outline of his butt. This guy was obviously homeless and had a crazy look in his eyes. Here I am, a 5'2", 95-pound kid with no strength, staring at a 6'2", 170-pound man. I, as tough as I could, said, "What's up?" The guy stared at me and started to smile. After 15 seconds, which seemed like 40 minutes, he said, "Have you room for one more?" I quickly said, "I was actually leaving, but it's all yours." The man opened up the gate, walked past me, sat down, and started to swing. I speed walked to the gate, shut it, and started walking in the forest. About 20 seconds later, I hear a loud,
"Get the fuck back here!"
and hear the gate spin open and running not far behind me. I practically shit my pants and start running as fast as I could. I somehow made it back to my house and locked the door without the man noticing where I went. I told my mom practically in tears and she called the police. The police searched around and came back a couple of hours later with no one. That night I was tossing and turning in my bed when I heard footsteps in my street. I look out my window and see the man looking through the windows of all the houses on my street. I start to shake as I grab the phone and called the police without even telling my parents. The cops showed up a few minutes later and caught the man. The cops didn't give us a whole lot of information, but a few days later, cops called and told us the man had a mental illness and has been living in one of the abandoned houses for a couple of weeks, and that he was planning on kidnapping me and doing God knows what to me. So, to the creepy fuck that tried to kidnap me, let's not meet. Hey guys, Hellfreezer again, and thank you very much for watching my 15 videos special. A bit different than the usual format, I know, 15 as opposed to 3, but there are just so many good shorter and medium-length stories out there on Reddit that I really wanted to take the opportunity to read some of those for you as well. Yeah, if it does well enough, I might make a regular thing of it, although they do take a little longer to put together than the usual videos I do. I think it's worth it in the end. Anyway, until next time, take care of yourself and happy holidays.